10 people will be executed this month. Today we will know about them. Let's get started. Roy Lee Ward execution, October 10th, 2025. Indiana, July 11th, 2001, inside a small white house. 15-year-old Stacy Payne was alone, getting ready for school. Her mother had already left for work, and her younger sister was staying with relatives. At approximately 9:30 a.m., a family friend stopped by the house. What she found inside would haunt her forever. Stacy's body lay motionless on her bed. Her throat had been slashed, and there were signs of a violent sexual assault. The room bore evidence of a desperate struggle. Sheets torn, a lamp shattered, and a trail of blood leading toward the hallway. The friend ran screaming from the house, calling 911 with trembling hands. Within minutes, police surrounded the area, trying to comprehend the brutality they had just witnessed. The investigation detectives from the Perry County Sheriff's Office quickly realized this was no random crime. Whoever had attacked Stacy knew the neighborhood, maybe even the family. Witnesses recalled seeing a man walking barefoot near the area earlier that morning, disheveled and sweating. That detail matched the description of a local drifter who had been doing odd jobs around town. 29-year-old Roy Lee Ward. Ward had been seen mowing lawns, helping with small repairs, and occasionally sleeping in abandoned buildings. He was a drifter from Kentucky, with a history of burglary, drug use, and attempted sexual assault. Police soon discovered that Ward had worked for a neighbor of the Paynes just weeks earlier. He knew the layout of the homes, the schedules, and who was often home alone. By noon, a multi-agency manhunt was underway. Helicopters circled overhead, and K-9 units searched through nearby woods. Just a few hours later, officers spotted Ward walking along a rural road outside Tell City. He was barefoot, his pants streaked with mud and blood. When deputies approached, he tried to flee, but exhaustion caught up to him fast. Within moments, he was tackled to the ground and handcuffed. In his pockets, officers found a small knife, the blade still stained with blood. During interrogation, Ward initially denied everything, but as the evidence mounted, the blood, the fingerprints, and the DNA, his story began to crumble. After hours of questioning, he broke down and confessed, describing in chilling detail how he had entered Stacy Payne's home that morning. He claimed he just wanted to talk, but when she resisted his advances, he snapped. The rage that followed was uncontrollable, violent, senseless, and final. The trial of Roy Lee Ward began in early 2002, and the courtroom was packed from day one. The community of Tell City was small. Everyone knew the Payne family, and everyone wanted justice. Prosecutors presented overwhelming forensic evidence: DNA on the bedsheets, Ward's palm print on the doorframe, and the knife recovered from his pocket, matching the wounds on Stacy's body. There was no question who had done it. The only remaining question was what penalty he would face. Ward's defense team pleaded for mercy, citing his troubled upbringing and alleged mental health struggles. They painted a portrait of a man shaped by abuse and addiction, a lost soul spiraling beyond control. But the prosecution countered with a cold, undeniable truth: a teenage girl had been brutally murdered in her own bed. They argued that society needed protection from men like Roy Lee Ward. After just a few hours of deliberation, the jury returned their verdict: guilty of murder and rape. The judge sentenced Ward to death by lethal injection. The final days. In September 2025, the governor of Indiana signed the official execution order. The date was set, October 10th, 2025. As the news broke, the Payne family issued a simple statement: "We have waited long enough." On the morning of his execution, Ward was moved from his cell to a holding room beside the chamber. Witnesses later described him as calm, perhaps resigned. When asked about his last meal, he requested something modest: fried catfish, cornbread, green beans, and a slice of pecan pie. He reportedly ate slowly, pausing often, saying little. When asked if he had any last words, Roy Lee Ward looked toward the window and spoke softly: "I can't undo what I did. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I pray for peace for her family, and for my soul." Now we'll move on to the next story.
The Supreme Court has set an execution date for Lance Shockley. The 48-year-old Missouri man was convicted of murdering a Missouri State Highway Patrol trooper in 2005.
Lance C. Shockley execution, October 14, 2025, Springfield, Missouri. March 22, 1999, inside a modest townhouse on Maple Avenue. 32-year-old Patricia "Trish" Reynolds was finishing her evening chores. She had spent the day caring for her 2 young children and running errands. She returned home after finishing work. At approximately 9:00 p.m., Tricia's neighbor noticed the house's front door slightly ajar, an unusual sight in a normally secure neighborhood. Inside, the living room bore signs of violence: overturned furniture, shattered picture frames, and dark stains on the carpet. Tricia's body was discovered in the kitchen, brutally beaten and bound, her life extinguished in an act of horrific rage. Detectives from the Springfield Police Department were quick to identify that this was not a random break-in. Witnesses reported seeing a man lingering near the townhouse earlier that evening, a tall, lean figure with a nervous demeanor, walking briskly along the sidewalks. Further investigation revealed the man to be Lance C. Shockley, 34, a drifter with a criminal record including burglary, assault, and theft. Shockley had spent years moving between towns, often doing odd jobs and occasionally sleeping in abandoned buildings. Neighbors recalled seeing him around the area days prior, asking questions about household routines and mail deliveries. It became clear that Shockley had been watching Tricia's home closely, noting when she was alone and vulnerable. Police quickly secured the scene and began gathering evidence. Fingerprints on the kitchen counter matched Shockley's, and DNA found under Tricia's fingernails confirmed a violent struggle. Surveillance footage from a nearby convenience store captured Shockley walking with what appeared to be a large bag, moments before the crime occurred. Within 48 hours, detectives had enough to issue an arrest warrant. Shockley was apprehended 2 days later at a rundown motel on the outskirts of Springfield. Initially, he denied any involvement, claiming he had been passing through town, but confronted with the forensic evidence, the eyewitness accounts, and the surveillance footage, Shockley eventually confessed. In a chilling recounting, he admitted to following Trish home, intending to rob her. When she resisted, the encounter escalated into unbridled violence. The trial, Shockley's trial, began in late 2000. The courtroom was tense, the air heavy with anticipation and grief. Prosecutors laid out the evidence meticulously, the DNA linking him to the scene, the eyewitness testimony, and the physical injuries sustained by Trish. They painted a harrowing picture of a woman's life, violently ended in her own home, emphasizing the premeditated nature of the attack and the extreme danger Shockley posed to society. The defense attempted to argue that Shockley acted in a moment of panic, citing his history of substance abuse and a troubled childhood. They argued that his life had been marked by neglect and hardship, pleading for leniency. But the jury's focus remained on the brutality of the crime and the terror inflicted upon a defenseless woman. After less than a day of deliberation, the verdict was delivered: guilty of first-degree murder and armed robbery. The sentencing phase was swift. Considering the violent nature of the crime, Shockley's prior record, and the danger he posed to the community, the jury recommended death by lethal injection. The judge affirmed the sentence, stating that the magnitude of Shockley's actions left no room for alternative punishment. The final days. For the next 25 years, Shockley remained on Missouri's death row. Appeals were filed repeatedly, arguing procedural errors, ineffective counsel, and challenges to the forensic evidence. Each appeal was denied. The years of confinement transformed Shockley into a quiet, withdrawn figure. Guards reported that he spent his time reading, occasionally writing letters, and meeting sporadically with spiritual advisors. In September 2025, the governor of Missouri signed the execution warrant. The date was set, October 14, 2025. Family members of Trish Reynolds issued a statement expressing a mixture of relief and sorrow. Decades of waiting for justice had finally come to an end. He requested a modest last meal: roast beef, mashed potatoes with gravy, steamed broccoli, and a slice of apple pie. Staff reported that he ate quietly, taking time with